Hi children, I am going to continue the lesson Independent India, first 30 years 1947 to 77. Now let us have a quick recap of what we learnt in the first part. We learnt about the main challenges faced by independent India. And the first challenge was first general elections because most of the people were illiterates at that time. And the second challenge was reorganization of states on the basis of language. There was a demand for state reorganization on the basis of language. Reorganization Act was passed in 1956, Commission was appointed in 1953, and also we learnt about social and economic changes brought by the Nehru government, and the Planning Commission, first 5-year plan, and the agricultural reforms introduced by Nehru's government, we learnt. And also we learnt about the foreign policy of India, which is called as non-aligned movement. Now let us continue. Now, after the death of Jawaharlal Nehru in 1964, our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, died in 1964. Lal Bahadur Shastri, he became the Prime Minister. And the main challenges faced by Lal Bahadur Shastri's government were anti-Hindi agitation led by DMK. In the south, DMK means Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam. In the south, shortage of food, war with Pakistan in 1965, and in 1966, Lal Bahadur Shastri died. It was untimely death. After Shastri's untimely death in 1966, Indira Gandhi became the Prime Minister. And the first challenge faced by Lal Bahadur Shastri was anti-Hindi agitation. Now let us see what is this anti-Hindi agitation. The Official Language Act was passed in 1963. And according to this act, Hindi was made as official language. The Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam party, that is DMK party, felt that the usage of Hindi language is forcibly imposed on the rest of the country by making it as the official language. In Tamil Nadu, a statewide campaign was started by DMK protesting against the imposition of Hindi. Many strikes, dharnas, hartals, burning of effigies, Hindi books, Hindi signboards, and even pages of the constitution was started in Tamil Nadu state, statewide. And this led to clashes between the police and the protesters also. And the Congress party itself was divided into two groups, like pro-Hindi and anti-Hindi. Pro-Hindi means for Hindi, and anti-Hindi means against. Some leaders felt that the unity and national integrity was in danger. When this anti-Hindi agitation was started by Tamil Nadu state, some Congress leaders, they felt that the unity and national integrity was in danger. And finally, when things were going out of hand, Lal Bahadur Shastri, though he was a supporter of Hindi, he gave many concessions to anti-Hindi groups. Like, what were the concessions given by Lal Bahadur Shastri's government? He gave the right of each state to have a language. That means each state can have its own language. Whether it is regional language or English language, it can be their official language. They can make their own regional language or English language as their official language. For communications, they can communicate in regional languages with English translation. If they are communicating in regional language, it must be translated into English, because English is known to all the people throughout the country. So, English would continue to be the communication language between center and the state. For communication between the central government and state government, English should be used. And if they use, for communication, if they use regional languages, it should be translated into English. And the civil service exams also would be conducted in English rather than Hindi alone, because till then only in Hindi civil services exams were being conducted. And it was a great loss, great problem to the other people, because those who do not know Hindi, they could not write the exams. So now he decided that the civil service exams also would be conducted in English rather than Hindi alone. So these were the concessions granted by Shastri's government. First of all, he gave right to each state to have its own language as official language, whether it is regional language or English language. And they can communicate in regional languages also, and if they communicate in regional language, they have to translate it into English. And English would continue to be the communication between central and state governments. And civil service exams would be conducted in English rather than Hindi alone. These were the concessions given by Shastri's government. Now, Green Revolution. After independence, there was a need to increase the food production to meet the growing needs of the population, because at the time of partition, many of the areas, rice growing areas, they went into Pakistan like Karachi, Sindh. These were very fertile areas and they were producing rice, and they went into Pakistan. So there was a need to increase the food production to meet the growing needs of the population. And the government introduced a new strategy called Green Revolution to increase the agricultural productivity by using new scientific methods like HYV seeds, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides, and machinery, etc. Between 1964 to 67, this Green Revolution strategy was introduced in agricultural sector. First, it was introduced in respect of wheat in the states of Punjab, Haryana, and Western Uttar Pradesh. And when it was successful, it was introduced in the south in respect of wheat. And when this experiment was also successful, increasing the productivity, Green Revolution was introduced throughout the country in respect of both wheat and rice also. Now, rise of regional parties and regional movements. The 1967 elections, that is fourth general elections. First general election 52, 57, 62. And the fourth general elections were held in 1967, and these 1967 elections were a landmark in the history of India because the Congress party suffered its worst defeat till then. That was the first time Congress was defeated, and it got the lowest majority at central level when compared to previous elections. And at state level also the Congress party was defeated in states like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Punjab, West Bengal, Odisha, Madras, and Kerala. And this was the first big transition. A party which won the first three elections was now defeated, and the party which ruled for 30 years was now challenged by the other parties. And most importantly, the Congress party, which was defeated in 1967 elections, did not cling to power but allowed the winning parties to form the government. Remember, that is the main feature of democracy. Winning parties form the government in a democracy. So, these elections showed that democracy has taken roots in India and the country was moving towards competitive multi-party system. Now, the prominent losses for Congress party. In Kerala state also and in West Bengal also, Congress party lost in 1967 elections. And in Tamil Nadu also it was defeated. And these defeats and challenges weakened the Congress party. Internally, within the Congress party, it was weakened. And in many states in the north, in some states, the Congress party marginally won the elections. But in those states also, the Congress members, they defected to opposition parties. Defection means if a candidate is elected from one party and he changes to other party after being elected from this party. Suppose a candidate is contesting in the elections from Congress party and he won the elections. And after winning the elections, he changes over to another party. Maybe there may be many reasons, bribing or any other reason, he changes his party. That is called defection. And many of these Congress members, they defected to opposition parties after winning. So, consequently, the Congress governments fell down in those states also. Wherever Congress won marginally in those states also, because the Congress members, they defected to the opposition parties, the Congress government, they collapsed and they were replaced by Sanyukta Vidhayak Dal government. And it was the first time that SVD government, Sanyukta Vidhayak Dal governments were established at state level. What are these SVD governments? These are basically a coalition of legislators, that means MLAs who win the elections and who are against Congress, they come together, they form coalition and they form the government. And these SVD governments were made up of Janasangh, Socialists, Swatantra Party and Congress defectors who changed their party to other parties, and besides the local parties, all these came together to oppose Congress and they formed into Sanyukta Vidhayak Dal governments, and these governments were formed at state level in 1967 elections when Congress was defeated in many states. And the new governments are a landmark, important marker in India's political history, because for the first time in these elections, after these 1967 elections, the intermediate castes formed the government. What are these intermediate castes? The groups who were first benefited from the land reforms and acquired some degree of economic standing and political power. That means these intermediate castes, they were benefited due to the redistribution of land. Now they are landowners, and also they gained some political power, and they belong to intermediate castes. And these castes are Jats in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, Kurmis and Koris in Bihar, Loths in Madhya Pradesh, as well as the Yadavs in all these states. You have to remember all these names, it is very important part. The Reddis and Kammas in Andhra Pradesh, the Vokkaligas in Karnataka, and the Vellalas in Tamil Nadu. These are the intermediate castes in these states, and in all these states, government was formed at state level by these intermediate castes. That is the importance of or significance of these 1967 elections. And these were the dominant castes in their respective states. And the DMK itself is the best example of the coming to age of the other dominant caste. DMK, Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam. How this DMK party could defeat Congress, do you know, in 1967 elections? Because of M.G. Ramchandra. He was the leader of the party, and he was a famous film hero. And because of that background, he could get more votes. Because of that popularity, he could defeat the Congress party. And many of these SVD government, that is Sanyukta Vidhayak Dal government, they were short-lived. They did not continue for a long time. And the reason for this was defections and corruption. Corruption, you know, everyone who is in politics is corrupted. So, defections means, just now I explained, if a candidate wins from one party and after winning the elections, he changes to another party, that is called as defections. And these SVD governments, they were famous for defections and corruptions, and because of this, they were short-lived. Now, in Assam, a new state called Meghalaya was created. Meghalaya was created from Assam state. In December 1969 it was created. And out of the tribal districts of Khasi, Jayantia and Garo Hills. Khasi, Jayantia and Garo Hills, they are in Meghalaya now. These are, and as you know, in Khasi Hills, our Mausinram and Cherrapunji, which get the highest rainfall, they are located. And out of this Assam only, Meghalaya was created in December 1969, and Punjab was created in 1966. And at that time, Chandigarh was the common capital for Punjab, Haryana and Chandigarh Union Territory also. But Punjab wanted a separate capital, that is Chandigarh, to be the exclusive capital of only Punjab. It did not want to share capital with the other two, Haryana and Chandigarh. It wanted that Chandigarh should be the capital of Punjab only. And in Maharashtra, there was a demand of Bombay for Maharashtrians only, because it was led by Shiva Sena party. And because many of the South Indians, that is from Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, these people, they were going and occupying many of the important jobs in Maharashtra. So that the local people, they were deprived of their employment opportunities. So they started a demand for Bombay for Maharashtrians only. And these were the different movements led in different states. And at the same time, old demands also continued. Like in Kashmir and Nagaland also, the demand for a separate state. Nagaland, it wanted to get separated, and Bodoland, a separate state. Nagaland itself is a very small state, and out of it, Bodoland is to be created. Like that, they started separate movements for a separate state. And even there were riots in different parts of the country, including Ranchi in Bihar, Ahmedabad in Gujarat, Jalgaon in Maharashtra, and Aligarh in Uttar Pradesh. Different movements were led in these states. And now let us see in Kashmir, how Kashmir joined the Indian Union. At the time of integration of princely states, Kashmir wanted to be an independent state, and Muslims were in majority in Kashmir, and it was ruled by a Hindu ruler. And by the end of 1947, Kashmir was invaded by Razakars supported by Pakistan. These Razakars, these are like revolutionists, and they were supported by Pakistan, and they invaded Kashmir. And to protect itself, the Maharaja of Kashmir, he requested the Indian forces to help fight the enemies. But the Governor General of India, he made it clear that Indian forces will be provided only after Kashmir joins the Indian Union. And Delhi Agreement was signed then by Kashmir, and according to this agreement, Kashmiris would become full citizens of India and self-rule and more powers than the other states they will get. And this Delhi Agreement is 370 article of the Constitution. And after signing this agreement, the Indian forces were sent to Kashmir for protecting themselves. And after 1967 elections, Indira Gandhi took a sharp left turn. Now let us see what is this left turn policy of Indira Gandhi. She created a new social base for herself and her party by concentrating on the welfare of the poor and the downtrodden. Because in 1967 elections, the Congress party was defeated, Indira Gandhi took a sharp left turn, and she called it as left turn policy, because if it is not right, it is left. All the people, they prefer right. So she took a left turn. That means other than what the other leaders took, like that she took a different path from the other leaders, and she concentrated on the welfare of the poor and the downtrodden, and with this she could win the majority number of votes in the next elections because of concentrating on the welfare of the poor and the downtrodden. Now Bangladesh war. As a protest against the stepmotherly treatment, of course, after partition, Pakistan and Bangladesh, Bangladesh was only part of Pakistan. And Bangladesh, as a protest against the stepmotherly treatment of West Pakistan, in East Pakistan, a liberation movement was started. Because the Western Pakistan showed much discrimination between the Eastern Pakistan and Western Pakistan, and stepmotherly treatment was given to East Pakistan, that is Bangladesh. So a liberation movement was started to get separated from Pakistan. Bangladesh requested India to help, and at that time Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, and she extended full cooperation. And with the help of India, Bangladesh won the war in 1971 and was formed as a separate state. And the left turn policy. Indira Gandhi introduced new policies and programs to win the next elections. All these arrangements were being made by Indira Gandhi. She introduced new policies and programs, and the new policy was called left turn policy. This new policy helped her to get control over her party organization, and in 1971 elections she gave the slogan Garibi Hatao. Just like she concentrated on the welfare of the poor and the downtrodden, she also gave the slogan Garibi Hatao, removal of poverty. And with this, she could win the elections with a record margin. And with this great victory, she silenced her critics. Those who criticized her, they were silenced by her victory. And she became a popular leader, loved by all the masses. And also in 1972, when assembly elections were held in some states, Congress won the elections because of this popularity wave of Indira Gandhi only. And during the period of Indira Gandhi's prime ministership, her government made two important laws. That is, one is nationalization of 14 private banks and also abolition of privy purses. The second one is abolition of privy purses. Privy purses means the pensions granted to the native princes after independence, because when we got independence, all these princely states were integrated into the Indian Union. So these native princes or native kings who were ruling over these native states, they were not having any source of livelihood for themselves after independence. So they were granted these pensions by the government. And these privy purses, the pensions which were granted to the native princes, they were abolished by Indira Gandhi's government in 1971. These pensions were called privy purses, and privy purses were abolished by Indira Gandhi's government in 1971. And in 1969, 14 banks were nationalized, and in 1971, privy purses were abolished in the name of social and economic changes. To bring social and economic equality, these privy purses were abolished by Indira Gandhi's government. And to bring socialism only, social equality only, the 14 banks, private banks were nationalized. If they are brought under the control of the government, nationalization means bringing them under the control of the government. If they are controlled by the government, all the people can enjoy the benefits. So, both these legislations made by her government were challenged in the courts. Her government made two legislations, and these two legislations were challenged in the courts. And on the other hand, the Supreme Court was afraid that the constitution was being amended frequently in the name of social and economic development, and it was disrupting the existing relations between the legislature and the judiciary. So, in 1973, the Supreme Court came up with its judgment in Keshavananda Bharati case. Already we have discussed about this Keshavananda Bharati case, that the basic structure of the constitution can never be changed by anyone, not even by the parliament. The parliament only can initiate amendments to the constitution. So even the parliament cannot change the basic structure of the constitution. And thus the Supreme Court with its judgment put a check on the governmental power to amend the constitution. That means to some extent a check was exercised over the governmental power to amend the constitution. And because of certain events taking place which were beyond her control, Indira Gandhi could not fulfill all her promises made to the people at the time of elections. And to add to this, in 1973, Arab-Israeli war took place. And because of this war, oil prices were increased. And there was inflation, food shortage, unemployment everywhere. And there was a general unhappiness and dissatisfaction among large sections of the people. And taking advantage of this situation, the opposition parties united under Jayaprakash Narayan, and they led a number of campaigns against the Congress party, because opposition parties will be waiting for such opportunities only. And taking advantage of this situation, immediately they united under Jayaprakash Narayan, and they led a number of campaigns against the Congress party. And this was popularly known as JP movement. Now, emergency. In the name of maintaining law and order in the country, where this JP movement was gaining speed and it was becoming stronger and stronger, the government reacted very harshly and made a number of laws violating the civil rights of the people. And during 1971 elections, Indira Gandhi violated some of the provisions of the Representation of the People's Act. Those who contest in the elections, they have to follow strictly the provisions of this act, the Representation of the People's Act. But she violated some of the provisions of this act during her canvassing in the elections. And for this, she was expelled from the Lok Sabha. That means she was unseated. She was removed from her seat in the Lok Sabha. Of course, she could get a stay from the Supreme Court. And when the JP movement was gaining strength, to preserve order, to save democracy, and also to protect the social and economic transformation, and to preserve national integrity, the government imposed emergency. And the government also took many repressive measures, like to bring order in the country at the time during emergency. Indira Gandhi's government took many repressive measures, and during this period of emergency, as you know, fundamental rights are suspended temporarily. And after the emergency period is over, again the fundamental rights are given back to the citizens. And fundamental rights, as usual, they are suspended temporarily, and there were arbitrary detentions. That is, people were arrested and detained in the police custody without any arrest warrant. And civil liberties were also violated. Civil liberties means freedom of speech, freedom of expression. All these were not given to the people. People were deprived of these civil liberties, and many steps were taken by the Indira Gandhi's government, like demolition of slums, forced sterilization in the name of population control. These two actions of Indira Gandhi's government were criticized by many people all over the world. These two were criticized by many people. And on the other hand, steps like controlling the prices, campaigning against black marketing and bonded labor, they were welcomed by the people. And the major highlight of this period was 42nd Constitutional Amendment. This constitutional amendment was made in 1976. This is the most important amendment because through this amendment many changes were made to the existing constitution, and that is why it is also known as mini constitution. And this constitutional amendment brought many changes. And the main aim of this amendment was, four aims were there: excluding the courts from election disputes. Before this amendment was made, if there were any election disputes, at the time of election, if there were any disputes, they were settled by the courts. So now, according to this amendment, the courts were excluded from election disputes. If there are any disputes, only the election commission resolves those disputes, not the courts. Second one, strengthening the central government is service the state government. Along with the state governments, the central government was also strengthened by giving more and more powers. That means equal powers were given to both central and state governments, and providing maximum protection from judicial challenges to social and economic transformation legislation. Listen to it very carefully, it is a very important part. When Indira Gandhi's government made two legislations regarding nationalization of 14 banks and also abolition of privy purses, these two legislations, they were challenged in the courts. So, now according to this 42nd Amendment, any laws made by the government for the social and economic transformation or social and economic development, if any laws are made by the government, they cannot be challenged in the courts. I hope you understood. If the government makes any laws for the social and economic development of the country, such laws cannot be challenged in the courts. And the fourth one was making the judiciary subservient to the parliament. That means it is not dependent on parliament, but parliament will have a more say than the judiciary, making the judiciary subservient to the parliament. And the main aim of this 42nd Amendment was to protect social and economic development from judiciary. As I told you, if any laws are made for the social and economic development of the country, such laws cannot be challenged by the courts, in the courts. That is the main aim of this amendment. So, this amendment was made to protect the social and economic development from judiciary and strengthen the national integrity. But in reality, it actually weakened the democratic fabric of this country because more powers were given now to the government and parliament and judiciary, they were silenced. So now you have to, this last part is very, very important. The important provisions of 42nd Constitutional Amendment. I am once again repeating. First one is excluding the courts from election disputes. If there are any election disputes, the courts need not solve them. The election commission will resolve those disputes. Second one, strengthening the central government against the state governments, giving equal powers to both and making central government more stronger, and providing maximum protection from judicial challenges to social and economic transformation. If any laws are made by the government for the social and economic development, those laws cannot be challenged in the courts. And also making the judiciary subservient to parliament. Now, this is the end of the lesson. As usual, I have given you homework. Read full lesson, underlining all the key points, and learn all the 1 mark and 2 mark questions, and write without seeing, and complete the blanks with the help of textbook. Repeatedly, I am saying first complete the blanks and then compare your answers with the key. Here is the key for blanks.